Higher, further, faster.
Hey, welcome back ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the Marvels. So this movie had lots of connections to the greater MCU, and it also set up some incredible storylines and crossovers with the Young Avengers, the X-Men, Secret Wars, and in my opinion, the film was also a lot of fun. As always, we have a lot more to say about this movie, so make sure you subscribe for more videos coming to you soon, and I am so excited to show you guys this. We have designed 3 new shirts for sale at our merch store at ScreenCrushMerch.com, where we design the shirts ourselves, tailored for you. We have this Kitty the Cannibal shirt, Doug is a Flurkin, which is horrifying, and one of my personal favorites, the Higher, Further, Faster shirt. And get this, all of these cats are cats that are actually owned by the ScreenCrush staff. Shopping our merch store, guys, is the best way for you to directly support our channel, and it means the world to all of us that you can watch, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, and that we get to nerd out together every day. Thanks so much, and let's dive into this movie. Now, this movie is a sequel to a movie that came out 4 years ago and also 2 television series, so some of you might be a little fuzzy on who these characters are or wondering why a random Pakistani-American family was brought into outer space. So I'm going to give you a very quick recap of who everybody is, and we also have full recaps of Ms. Marvel and WandaVision up on the channel right now if you want to watch a more in-depth play-by-play. This won't take long, but if you want to skip ahead, I understand, and the chapters of the recap are marked below. So in 2019's Captain Marvel, a test pilot named Carol Danvers is testing a new spacecraft that is powered by the Tesseract. That's the space stone from the Avengers. She gets caught up in an interplanetary war between aliens called the Kree and the shape-shifting Skrulls. Then there's an accident and she gains powers but loses her memory. She's then tricked into serving the Kree AI leader, the Supreme Intelligence, until she returns to Earth, meets Nick Fury, then turns on the Kree and helps Skrull refugees find safety. Now, along the way, we also meet her best friend Maria and her daughter Monica Rambeau, who also designs Carol's costume. So Carol has essentially been in space for decades, while Monica became an agent of S.W.O.R.D., but a lot more on them later. So in the show WandaVision, Wanda Maximoff created a pocket reality that turned an entire town into a sitcom. Monica went back and forth into this town a couple of times, changing her cellular structure and giving her powers. Now that show actually ended with Fury calling her back up into outer space. And Kamala Khan is a Captain Marvel fangirl from Jersey City, and very long story short, her great-grandmother is a being from another dimension who was trapped in our dimension. Her people found the bangle that Kamala wears in this movie, and years later, the bangle unlocks Kamala's dormant mutant powers and she becomes the superhero, Ms. Marvel. So unlike a lot of superhero stories, Kamala's family life is actually front and center in her story. They are a source of her strength and they are also delightful.
Bada Hulk or Choti Hulk? Huh? So cute you all will love.
Hey Doug, I'm gonna have lunch. Do you want some?
Oh no, person, what is that?
Just a tube of toothpaste, brother.
Person, no, you really gotta learn how to cook, man.
Yeah, this really backfired. This was a really bad idea. Oh, God, so gross. I think next time I'll eat this delicious, nutritious meal from Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and the sponsor of this video.
That smells amazing.
Why, thanks, Doug. This is a Chipotle rub pork chop with roasted pepper cabbage and red bell pepper fondue. I have no idea how I would have made this myself, but Factor makes it easy to eat a healthy, balanced diet. Factor chefs work hand-in-hand with dietitians to create more than 34 chef-prepared meals, everything from keto, calorie smart to vegan, and there's also seasonal meals like cranberry pecan chicken and apple Dijon pork chops. And guys, this food is delicious. So you can skip the grocery store with a Factor meal that is delivered straight to your front door, always fresh and never frozen. The meals are ready in just 2 minutes and are only around 550 calories per serving. Plus, this ends up being way cheaper than takeout.
You have money, right?
So I've been using Factor for almost a year now, and I have noticed such a big difference in my daily life. No joke, during peak Easter egg time, there are days when I start work at 6 a.m. and I finish at 8 p.m. and I just forget to eat, or I pour toothpaste into my mouth. But now, Factor meals help me get through my day with no hassle, no mess, no prep, just delicious food. And you can also tailor these meals to your lifestyle. They have keto, vegan, or if you're trying to bulk up, they have a protein plus selection with 30 more grams of protein or more per serving. So you have to give Factor a try. Head to factor75.com and use my promo code ScreenCrush50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. So let's get into these Easter eggs. The new Marvel Studios intro features mostly women, focusing particularly on the women from this movie. Now, this is the first female-only superhero team-up we've ever seen in a movie, and I appreciated that none of this felt forced. These are characters that all have a prior history together or like some kind of connection, and they've actually been laying the groundwork for this team-up for years. In WandaVision, we see Monica kind of bristle at the mention of Captain Marvel, and the show Ms. Marvel opened with Kamala obsessing over Carol. So this is a nice correction from the MCU's first female team-up moment, which felt very forced.
Girls get it done.
Sorry, I mean this forced team-up moment.
She's got help.
And then we meet our villain, Dar-Benn. Now look, in the comics, Dar-Benn is like the lowest of the low-tier Marvel villains. Like, I had to look the guy up, and this is me we're talking about. I usually know all this stuff. Dar-Benn is a Kree warlord who built a robot Silver Surfer and then became like co-emperor of the Kree Empire. Now, the Dar-Benn in this movie is played by Zawe Ashton, who is married to Loki actor Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, what was her whole deal? I didn't get it.
Okay, remember how earlier I said that the Kree are ruled by an AI in the comics? This AI is called the Supreme Intelligence, and it's made up of all the greatest minds in the history of the Kree Empire, and it's also a giant head in a jar. So in the movie Captain Marvel, we see the Kree have an almost religious devotion to this thing. They commune with it like it's a spirit guide, and it takes the form of someone they trust. Carol eventually rebels against the Supreme Intelligence at the end of the movie. And in this movie, we find out that after the events of Captain Marvel, she goes back to Hala, killed the giant head in a jar, and this basically destroyed the Kree economy, government, and for some reason, all their natural resources.
Jeez. That kind of would have been a better movie.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see. So, Carol, for decades, has been trying to make amends. Remember, she lived on Hala for years. She thought she was one of the Kree. She probably made friends there. So she doesn't blame the Kree people for deceiving her. She blames the Supreme Intelligence. But she essentially killed the Kree god, and that's why they call her the Annihilator. This also fits in very nicely with the running theme of the multiverse saga, which is the destruction of belief system or gods. Thor: Love and Thunder was about Thor learning that gods weren't really all they were cracked up to be, and finding out that Zeus was a selfish a-hole. The Eternals was about a group of heroes learning that their gods have been lying to them for centuries, while Wakanda Forever was about Shuri confronting the legacy of the Black Panthers. Point is, all the way through this saga, we're seeing characters have to confront the past, whether it's confronting the problems caused by time travel or just confronting the legacies of the people who came before them. So anyways, the destruction of the Supreme Intelligence sparked a Kree civil war, which connects so many dots in the MCU. Now, the Kree are this massive militaristic empire that has occupied like countless worlds across galaxies. They even fought a 1,000-year war with Xandar, the home of the Nova Corps that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy. But at the start of that movie, we found out that the Kree had just signed a peace treaty with Xandar, and Ronan the Accuser thought that this was a betrayal of his people.
Our government signed a peace treaty!
My government knows no shame.
Then Ronan went on a killing spree.
He is slaughtering children.
And now we know why all of this happened. The Kree were weakened because of Carol. After the Supreme Intelligence was killed, they lost ground in their war against Xandar. Then Kree warlords and officials like Ronan splintered off with their own agendas.
Wow, and it's all because of Annette Bening.
Exactly. So now Dar-Benn has won the Civil War. She has consolidated her people as the new Supremor. That's the title of a Kree leader that's held by many people in the comics, including Ronan the Accuser. So in this movie, her evil plan is basically the plot of the movie Spaceballs, where the militaristic aliens steal the atmosphere of planet Iridia. But I'm not trying to dunk on the movie. I think her plan is actually an apt metaphor for Kree imperialism. Like empires, by their definition, like unite people under the rule of a single leader. But empires also always require the people to unite behind a common enemy or like a war. Empires always sprawl too large, and they need more and more resources, which they take from remote areas, colonies that exist to serve the central empire. So the Kree stealing resources from other worlds is a total imperialistic move, and Dar-Benn specifically targets planets that Carol has had an attachment to. So to do this, she needs the quantum bands.
Or like the quantum realm?
Kind of. So in the comics, it's called the quantum zone, and it's like the source for like all energy in the universe. And the quantum bands directly channel that energy. They were created by a giant tree-faced cosmic entity called Eon, and he would bequeath them to worthy people who would then become the protectors of the universe. One of these is the superhero Quasar. And here is where they start to mash together some aspects from the comics. Now, the quantum bands in the comics became the prototype for a very powerful Kree weapon called the Negabands. In the comics, the original Captain Marvel, Mar-Vell, wore these bands. He was entangled with a regular Earth dude named Rick Jones. So, while one of them was in our universe, the other one would be stuck in the negative zone until they swap places. And this is kind of similar to how Kamala's bangle allowed her to briefly see into the Nor dimension, another reality that basically exists alongside our own. And of course, that scene set up the ending of this movie, where the bands are used to rip a hole in space-time, which we talked about in our Ending Explained video. But in the MCU, MCU, the quantum bands were used to map out the Universal Neural Teleportation Network, or UNTN. Now, this is like hyperspace jumping in the MCU. When a ship travels in space, they leap through a hexagonal grid, showing that the universe really is made up of hexagons.
Not the beast!
And just a reminder, check out our Not the Bees shirt at our merch store. I like how all of you have made Not the Bees like a real thing, like it's an actual meme now.
Not the beast! Not the beast!
Like, the best part of my job is like the love and support that we get from all of you. And that is why I am so excited and terrified about our first live show ever in Brooklyn, New York on February 22nd. We got a lot of fun things planned, exclusive videos. I'm going to talk about stuff that I can't talk about on the channel. We got live Q&As, and the link to buy tickets is below. We also just started a new membership program where for a couple bucks a month you can support us with custom emojis, priority comments, and loyalty badges. So we're going to be rolling out more perks over the next few weeks, so let me know what you'd like to see us add down in the comments, because we are new to this and don't know what we're doing. Now, back to the Marvels. So Darvin is excavating one of these bands with the help of the Kree Inquisitors. Those are the arbiters of Kree justice, like Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy. I love how they still wear these Jack Kirby-inspired costumes with these sharp lines like drawn on them. So cool. So Darvin, like the Accusers, uses a hammer called the Universal Weapon. But in this movie, Kamala nicknames it a Cosmorod, which is the actual name of it on the Marvel Wiki and also in the comics. Glad they brought that in. And this is such a fun function that Kamala has in this movie. She's a kid, so she's willing to give everything a silly name and a comic book label. So ever since the X-Men movie in 2000, comic book movies have been running away from the source material so they could be taken seriously.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
While over the years, the movies have slowly embraced the wackiness of the comics, and Kamala insisting that Monica get a superhero codename helps to drag the movie into the realm of silly fun, but also allows the adults to think that, yeah, okay, I can have a codename. So when Dar-Benn digs up the bangle, they say, oh, there was supposed to be another one. Exactly what the Djinn said in Ms. Marvel when they found the first bangle on the arm of a dead Kree alien.
So where's the other one?
Now, as for how the bangles were separated and why one of them was in a temple with the 10 rings, we'll have to talk about that in another video. When they smash cut to Jersey City, we see the same underpass where Kamala took her driver's test in the first episode of Ms. Marvel. Now, in her room, we see all sorts of Carol Danvers posters, some of which are lifted from actual comic book art. We also see photos of her friends Bruno and Nakia in what looks like a drawing of Teen Groot. And there is also a poster for the New Jersey Avenger Con, which she went to in the first episode of her show. Now, the first episode of Ms. Marvel began with Kamala's stop-motion YouTube videos about the Battle of Earth.
Now, we all know the story. The Avengers were trying to save the world, but if we're being honest here, they were losing.
And all through the show, we get these interludes where we would see the world being animated when it's presented from her fun, childlike point of view. I am so happy they brought this over into the movie. Like, this opening stop motion is crafted from post-it notes, cellophane. It's slick, but it's also low budget. It's just a pitch perfect introduction to Kamala Khan. And it shows how she's not only a huge fan of Carol's, but like her dream is to have a team up with her. Now, her production company is called Sloth Baby Productions, which we see referenced here, and like her favorite animal is a sloth, just like it is in the comics. Just like in the comics, Kamala is a huge fan of Carol Danvers. In fact, in the books, Kamala is actually a shapeshifter, and she started her superhero career by turning herself into Carol Danvers. So Kamala has this idea of what Carol's life must be like: flying through space, saving lives, being a cosmic hero. It's the life that Kamala thinks she wants.
Cosmic.
But then we cut to Carol's actual life. She's a loner. She's haunted by the mistakes she's made. So she thinks that she doesn't deserve to have any friends or family. She's used to doing everything herself, and she spends all her free time trying to sift through her memories and past. And to do this, she's using the scroll memory tech that we saw in Captain Marvel and in Secret Invasion. Basically, this just scans your mind for memories. In the first Captain Marvel film, this did help Carol recover some of her memories, as the scrolls were able to use it to see the time before Carol's mind was wiped. Now, I should also note that in the comic, Carol has lost her memories several times. The most famous incident was when the X-Men Rogue, back when she was a villain, she touched Carol for so long that she permanently absorbed Carol's powers and memories. And later, Carol became a fixture in the X-Men comics, unlocking her hidden powers and becoming a character called Binary, but more on that in a bit. So Carol lives this solitary life, but we see that she still thinks about Monica with these newspaper clippings. And she also enjoys a little laser pointer time with Goose.
Yeah, what's up with all the magic cats?
Well, Goose is not a cat. He is a flurkin. They are aliens that look like cats, but they have these gateways to a pocket dimension inside of them. It's why they can eat all the sword troops later in the movie, and everybody's just fine afterwards. And let's face it, Goose is one of your favorite parts of the movie. Like for the first film, Goose actor Nemo actually went to the Captain Marvel premiere in a little tie for the red carpet. Now, I really wish they would have resolved the strike before this movie came out, because now we've been deprived of Iman Vellani doing a press tour with this cat. Goose helps out around the ship though, putting on a pot of coffee for her right before messing up her console by walking on it. Now in the comics, Goose is also Captain Marvel's traveling companion, and he is named after Maverick's first wingman from Top Gun, this guy.
What you say?
Now at first, when Fury calls Carol, she sends him to voicemail, a callback to this.
You sent Nick Fury to voicemail?
Yeah.
You don't send Nick Fury to voicemail.
So then we see Fury on Saber, the home base of S.W.O.R.D. Now in the comics, S.W.O.R.D. is like the space answer to S.H.I.E.L.D. It protects the Earth from extraterrestrial threats. And in the MCU though, S.W.O.R.D. first appeared in WandaVision, where we learned that after the blip, the agency halted space travel.
Terrestrial missions only.
You're kidding.
Under the leadership of Tyler Hayward, S.W.O.R.D. focused on dealing with superpowered threats on Earth, maybe because Hayward had such a bias against the heroes who failed to save half the population.
Lost half my personnel on the blip, and half of those remaining have lost their nerve.
But we also know that Nick Fury was a higher up at S.W.O.R.D., or at the very least, he started taking vacations on the space station after the events of Endgame.
Got my shoes!
And look, I know a lot of you didn't like Secret Invasion or didn't find the time to watch it, but the TLDR here is that following the blip, Fury was kind of aimless because he put his faith in the heroes and the heroes failed. So he was a bitter old man who hid out on his space station.
You were never the same after the blip.
Then he uncovered a plot by rogue Skrulls to take over the Earth and gain superpowers. Then he stops their invasion. But Skrulls were outed for trying to kill the president, and the series ends with there being mass panic, but Fury returning to space with his wife. For this video, we could ignore most of that, but we are definitely talking about that in a future video. In this movie, we see that Earth has started to become an interplanetary hub, or at least, humans are sending space flights through the hyperspace network. Now, we actually talked about that in this video, how Earth was basically becoming a part of a larger universe, and pretty soon we should start to see the planet consolidating into one world government. That might even be what the plot of Captain America Brave New World is all about. So Monica's origin in the comics is a lot less convoluted than it is in the MCU. She was a harbor patroller in Baton Rouge, she was exposed to a machine, then gained light powers. So this was at a time right after the original Captain Marvel, Marvel, died of cancer. So Monica took on his name to honor him and to keep the trademark alive and well. She later became an Avenger and at one point even became the chairwoman of the team. Now her powers in the comics and movie are basically the same. She can see, manipulate, and turn into light. But in the movie, she's also very reluctant to use her powers, and I like this change a lot. She still wants to be a normal S.W.O.R.D. agent on a career path to running the agency like her mom did. She has no interest in using her powers to take shortcuts, but as a consequence, she's also not very good at using her powers yet. So she touches the hexagonal portal at the same moment Carol does, and this entangles them with Kamala.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, you know, we might cover this more in depth in a future video, but I have a theory. Monica got her powers from Wanda, and Wanda's powers were unlocked by an Infinity Stone. Maybe the stone even supercharged her with some of its power, making Wanda more than just a regular witch. And Carol got her powers when a Tesseract-powered engine exploded. So, in an Age of Ultron deleted scene, we learned that the Infinity Stones are connected. They share the same energy.
The six, the infinite six, cannot be joined nor kept apart.
So the three of them become entangled, similar to the quantum entanglement in Ant-Man and the Wasp, when the minds of Scott and Janet were kind of locked together.
What the hell?
But in this picture, the entanglement serves a few purposes. One, it forces Carol to work with others. It also makes Carol and Monica confront their past and to finally open up to one another again. It also, of course, gives Kamala a seat at the table so she can meet her idol. But this also furthers a trend in superhero sequels where the hero loses their powers. Usually, the first film is an origin story that ends with the hero unlocking their full potential. So the sequel always has to find a way to limit their powers, whether it's through power loss, like in Spider-Man 2, the Wolverine, or Superman 2, or it's through the heroes losing control of their abilities.
You're out of control, okay? Can you trust me on this one, okay?
You're out of control.
It's time to go to bed.
This happened in the Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, with Johnny Storm taking on the abilities of the whole team. And it's kind of what they do here, with the heroes having to learn to synchronize their abilities. And then we meet Kamala's family, who were a delight in the show Ms. Marvel. Her brother was recently married in that show, and we see him talking to his new wife as they ascend the space elevator later in the movie. That space elevator, by the way, is an old idea in science fiction, recently used in the excellent Apple series Foundation. When Kamala apologizes to her parents for wrecking her closet door, she is standing in front of the fireplace. And in the show Ms. Marvel, this is always where she stands for like important family meetings, like when she asked if she could go to AvengerCon or when she told her family she was a superhero.
Oh my god! I had no idea!
Oh, Toba.
Dar-Benn travels to the new Skrull colony on Tarnax, led by their Emperor Droke, and this colony is actually name-dropped in Secret Invasion.
I sent out the call, and every Skrull that isn't in Emperor George's colony, they answered.
All of you know that I have problems with Secret Invasion. We all do. It unites us as a people. So I'm not gonna get into why the hell the Skrulls in Secret Invasion didn't just live on this colony. That mistake belonged to Secret Invasion and has nothing to do with this film, The Marvels.
It's not important, okay?
So Dar-Benn says she is here to make peace with the Skrulls and to formally accept them into the Kree Empire. In the comics, the Skrull and Kree Empires fought a war for thousands of years that sadly we will not get to see in the MCU. So then the quantum entanglement really kicks in, leading to these zippy fun fights in 3 places at the same time. We see that Kamala has really gotten the hang of her abilities since Ms. Marvel ended, and of course, this whole thing ends with Carol and Monica unintentionally meeting one another.
This is awkward.
Carol tries to call her Lieutenant Trouble, her nickname for her in Captain Marvel.
Lieutenant Trouble.
Then Carol, in typical go-it-alone fashion, decides she doesn't need anyone and tries to fly away, swapping places with Kamala unintentionally. Who, by the way, Kamala is wearing a Captain Marvel t-shirt. Now, we've already seen before in shows like She-Hulk that comic books have actually become a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the actual comics, the adventures of the various superheroes have been written into comics, which in She-Hulk they used as a research laboratory for the legal law firm. Monica is forced to learn how to fly, and when she's reluctant, Fury says, "Black Girl Magic!" And I don't know what that means.
Oh, Black Girl Magic is a term used to celebrate the beauty and power of black women.
Thanks, man. High five. So then Dar-Benn decimates this Skrull colony. And you know, they ended the last movie with Carol going off into space to find the Skrulls a home. You know, a place where the Kree couldn't reach them. I guess instead, Carol just decided to go back to Hala and destroy Kree leadership so there would no longer be a military to chase after the Skrulls.
Problem solved! So it's like Carol kept her promise to the Skrulls, but Fury didn't?
Yeah, I don't know. Just pretend like this movie exists on its own, no Secret Invasion. The Skrull Emperor has to watch as his colony is destroyed, and he tells Carol just basically to stop helping them, which is rough for her to hear because she has devoted the past 30 years of her life to helping Skrulls, trying to help the Kree, trying to right all the wrongs that she committed when she was the servant of the Supreme Intelligence. But luckily, Carol is apparently friends with the leader of an alien refugee country, Valkyrie.
Oh, we go way back.
Now, as we saw in Thor: Love and Thunder, Valkyrie is the president of a flourishing new Asgard, which has become what Korg envisioned.
It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe.
And now I guess they're going to accept these Skrull refugees.
But wait, isn't that like
I know. Look, the whole problem in Secret Invasion is that Fury knew that there was no way the people of Earth would ever accept the Skrulls. But that was like 1 million Skrulls. This is a tiny handful. Like, I really hope this is going to be setting up like a massive conflict between Asgard and other alien races versus the world governments. I would love to see a Phase 6 movie where the nations of Wakanda, Talokan, and Asgard are all attacked by humans at the same time, throwing the world into disarray before the real multiversal threat, Kang, arrives.
You didn't see that coming?
Valkyrie shows up to the ship via the Bifrost, like we saw her people using in Thor: Love and Thunder. She also tells Carol that she's been on some unintentional teams herself, like how she was one of the Revengers in Thor Ragnarok and one of the new team of Revengers in Thor: Love and Thunder. And is it me, or is there like some chemistry popping between Valkyrie and Carol?
I ship it.
Yeah, me too.
They're really cute.
So then Carol gets to officially meet Kamala and apologizes for how she spoke to her when they were surrounded by mass death and destruction. Now, in the comics, Carol was actually called Ms. Marvel first, and then she went by the name Binary, then Warbird, and then finally taking on the name of Captain Marvel fairly recently, actually. Now, in the comics, she and Kamala actually have a similar conversation they do here, where she basically gives her the blessing to use the name Ms. Marvel. So after they work out everything with the quantum bands and mapping out the universe, Kamala repeats the inscription on her bangle.
What you seek is seeking you.
Now, in the show, this is something that her great-grandfather always used to say, and then her great-grandmother, Aisha, spoke these words into the bangle, basically helping to summon Kamala to the past to save her granddaughter, which fulfills a kind of Ouroboros time travel loop a year before Loki Season 2 made it cool. But what this means in a larger sense of this movie is that fate and destiny pull people together who are supposed to be together. In the context of this film, the bands bring together 3 people with a connection who all need each other. But also, the bangles are drawn toward one another because they were forged together. So when the 3 of them put on the Skrull memory reading devices, we see that Carol did indeed return to visit Maria during the blip. She wished that Maria got the powers instead of her, like she did in Universe 838, like we saw in Multiverse of Madness. Now, Maria tells her that her cancer has returned. And remember, in WandaVision, Monica says she thought her mom was in full remission.
My mother, the procedure went well. You said so yourself. Clean margins, you're discharging her today.
Also, Maria never doubted that Monica would come back, which we also heard about in WandaVision.
Look, I know it's a raw deal, but there is one positive takeaway.
What's that?
She believed you'd come back.
And knowing all this really gives a lot of context for why Carol looks so pissed off when she fought Thanos. Now I know some of you might be thinking, why couldn't Carol bring back some kind of space cure for cancer, like that Azarian elixir she mentioned? Well, this is actually in keeping with the comics, where the cosmic hero Marvel, the guy with cosmic awareness who defeated Thanos, the Kree, the Skrulls, and he was ultimately defeated by cancer. And then the three of them get some bonding montage time where Kamala tries to pick a hero name for Monica, at one point even saying the names Spectrum and Photon, two names that Monica actually used in the comics. Now during the montage, Monica is wearing the same 9-inch nail shirt that Carol wore in the first movie. The montage is set to the song Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys, a very deliberate choice because of its opening lyric. A lot of the online criticism of Brie Larson and Captain Marvel was that she didn't, quote, smile enough, which was actually addressed in a deleted scene from that movie.
I'm offering to help you. Least you could do is give me a smile.
How about a handshake?
So the three of them jump to a planet called Aladna in the Magellanic Galaxy. Now, that's actually a real galaxy. There's two of them. They're dwarf galaxies. And they're called Magellanic because you can view them from the southern hemisphere. Basically, anything related to the Strait of Magellan is like given that name. Now this is a cool reference though, because Magellan's crew is famous for being the first to sail around the world, similar to how the Bengals were used to map the entire universe. So like the whole plot of this planet that Carol was forced to marry Prince Shan is also taken from the comics, except in the comics it was actually a teleporting mutant named Lila who marries the prince. Well, actually she was supposed to marry him, but then she didn't, and Carol showed up and married him. Like, it was a whole thing. Point is though, Lila's powers are teleportation, and that's kind of appropriate since this movie deals with teleporting and space jumping. And look, I think there's two kinds of people here. There's people who hate musical numbers like this and people who love them. Now we have seen fandom divided over this kind of thing before, like in the recent musical episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Mr. Spock?
The intermix chamber and containment field are stable.
Personally, I really like the musical. I thought they did a great job of explaining how this works in world. I mean, the people on the planet have to communicate through song. But the planet did also have this kind of Disney feel, like where Carol's clothes magically transform into a dress with these 2D animation sparkles. And, by the way, this means Carol Danvers is officially a Disney princess.
Do people assume all your problems got solved because a big strong man showed up?
Yes! What is up with that?
She is a princess!
Now, during the dance number, Kamala is having a great time. Oh, God, Iman Vellani's so great. And during this dance, notice she's doing the Bat-Tusi from the Adam West Batman show and from Pulp Fiction, but she also did the same dance move at her brother's wedding in Ms. Marvel. Afterwards, everybody gets new costumes, and at first, Monica's has these drapery-like wings, just like her 80s suit in the comics. Now, her costume is actually much closer to the suit that she wore as Spectrum in the more recent issues. And I should note that Monica's powers were foreshadowed all the way back in the 1990s.
Maybe I could fly up and meet you halfway.
Oh, only if you learn to glow like your Auntie Carol.
So, during the next fight against Dar-Ban, Kamala uses her scarf as a weapon, very similar to how she uses her stretchy powers in the comics. And our post-production manager Harriet Lengel-Enright pointed out that the new scarf works as a capture weapon, the exact same scarf weapon / capabilities as a character from the anime My Hero Academia who is named Eraserhead. After they get away from Dar-Ban, Carol runs everybody through her backstory and why she doesn't like being called the Annihilator. And I was going to say this. I think they should have called the movie The Annihilators. Now, there was a cosmic team called the Annihilators in the comics that came out after the Annihilation event, and frankly, it's just a cooler name than the Marvels. The Marvels kind of sounds like it's self-serving for the studio. So, then they work out that Dar-Ben wants to go to Earth to steal the power of the sun. And I just know that Neil deGrasse Tyson is champing at the bit to get on TikTok and explain how siphoning the energy of a sun wouldn't stop the fusion reaction happening at its core because of the massive amounts of energy a sun produces. But hey, don't focus too much on that because then you would miss out on the best sequence of the movie. Space kittens eating people set to the tune of Memory from Cats. Kamala is even using a flirkin like a ray gun, calling back to the greatest TV sci-fi epic of all time, Laser Cats. I loved this sequence. No notes. Now, I know some people are going to say that this was the worst use of memory since the actual movie Cats, but I was here for it. And I mentioned earlier that Fury was all like hardened and grizzled in Secret Invasion. And here we see him be more lighthearted, like when he tells Amir to keep praying. And by the way, when they crash in Battery Park, they fly by the Statue of Liberty. Notice it's the shiny, non-corroded version that we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home. And we see Captain America's shield. Alright, and now we get to the ending of the movie, which we have already talked about in our Ending Explained video, but I want to touch on just a few points. Kamala mentions that her bangle once opened a rift in space and time, when she traveled back in time to the partition of India and Pakistan. And when she gets both quantum bands, she says Bismillah. Now this is an Arabic saying used to begin Islamic prayers that means in the name of Allah. But in Islamic slang, it indicates the beginning of something.
Bismillah.
Bless you.
Now, she says that she was born to wear these bangles, and this goes back to the idea of what you seek is seeking you. And let me throw out a theory here, right? Kamala's great-grandmother was from the Noor dimension, and in her show, the Noor had heard of the bangles.
I found it. I found the bangle.
So I think that the quantum bands were actually created by the Noor, and they used them to map out our universe. But then this early Noor navigator was killed by a Kree, which is why a Kree arm wearing the bangle is in the Temple of the Ten Rings. And in Ms. Marvel, it's also revealed that the clandestines can't use the bangle to return to the Noor dimension. They actually need Kamala to do it because she's like tied to this world. But what if originally this navigator had a different device which worked in conjunction with the bangles, and this device would have allowed them to pierce the veil and go home? And that device could have been the 10 rings worn by Wen-Wu, hence why this was found in a Temple of the Ten Rings.
Oh yeah, man, solid theory. High five.
High five. And then Monica assumes her total light form, very similar to when she's fully powered up in the comics. She and Carol repeat the catchphrase from the first movie.
Higher, further, faster, baby.
Just like our higher, further, faster kitty t-shirt on sale at our merch store right now. After Monica closes the rift and is stranded in another reality, Carol moves into Maria's old place, finally settling down and returning to Earth, potentially setting her up for a new role and forming a new team of Avengers with Captain America, She-Hulk, Shang-Chi, and Spider-Man. Now, the first ending finally sets up what we've been waiting for years, the Young Avengers. Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye, comes home to Lucky the Pizza Dog, and Kamala is sitting in the shadows, reenacting Fury recruiting Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man. Right down to, you didn't think you were the only young superhero.
You think you're the only superhero in the world?
Now this is finally setting up the Young Avengers, a great comic book with members from the MCU like America Chavez, Billy and Tommy Maximoff, Eli Bradley, Scar, and of course, Cassie Lang, just like they tease in this scene. And we are going to dive real deep into that in a future video and talk about who we think the Young Avengers are going to fight. And then there is the mid-credit scene where Monica wakes up with Maria beside her, just like Monica was beside her mom's hospital bed in WandaVision. And then Kelsey Grammer's Beast is there like looking at her chart. So look, Kelsey Grammer was perfect casting in 2006's X-Men The Last Stand, and it was one of the few really strong points of that movie, and he also made a cameo again in X-Men Days of the Future Past. So I'm so excited to see Beast return, but now in the MCU. And in this room, we also see the classic X-Door from the underground base from the Fox X-Men movies. But there is another hidden X-Man in this scene. If you look at the monitor in the background, there's a translatable code that actually spells out your mom. Now, just like in Universe 838, Maria has powers, but here she is binary, and that was Carol's name when she was an X-Man, and they have very similar costumes. So this is leading us to the real meat of the multiverse saga. In the Secret Wars comic books, two universes were about to collide, the 616 and the 1610. That's the regular universe and the Ultimate Universe that Miles Morales was originally from. And these heroes from these two universes had to fight each other to see whose universe got to survive. Afterwards, they basically kind of meshed the two of them together into a new universe. And now, I think we're going to see the classic Fox X-Men movies, maybe alongside other Fox properties like Daredevil and Fantastic Four, and they are going to go up against the MCU heroes. Then, after Avengers Secret Wars, the whole thing's going to have a soft reboot where mutants are now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am very excited about this. Are you excited? What did you think of the movie? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.